Good afternoon. Welcome to the Museum of the Albemarle. I believe we probably have about 2 minutes, but we have some information that we would like to share with our online guests and with our in-person guests this afternoon or this morning, since we have 2 minutes to go. We Just a reminder that the Museum of the Albemarle will resume History for Lunch on Wednesday, January the 8th. I know we normally have History for Lunch the first Wednesday of every month, but January the 1st will be the first Wednesday of the new year, and we will be closed to the public that day. So we will resume on Wednesday, January the 8th, and Mr. Edward Faring will take us all back down memory lane through his collection of photographs of old Nags Head and surrounding communities dating back to the turn of the century. Also, too, during the month of December is when we have school groups booked every single day through the 18th of December this year. So we will be focusing on school groups. But we do invite you to join us for our annual holiday open house, a colonial Christmas that is scheduled on Saturday, December the 7th from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. Visitors will be able to sit back in time and experience a colonial Christmas through seasonal hands-on activities and games. Watch the Albemarle Express train model as it travels around the Albemarle region and stops at county landmarks in each of the 13 counties represented at the museum. Receive a keepsake bell to highlight your visit to the museum, to the Albemarle Express. The museum will also, as you can see in our online guests, the museum is decorated this year with 13 trees that represent the 13 counties that we represent here at the museum. And they all came in on Monday and decorated their trees. So we have 10 trees downstairs in the lobby that you might have seen when you walked into the museum. And we have 3 trees upstairs. And we do invite you to view all 13 trees because they are all unique and they do represent their counties. And then also on Saturday, December the 7th, we will have a petting zoo of farm animals on the museum green from 10:30 until 1:30 p.m. And we're going to try something new this year. We have a barn set up on the portico of the museum, and you can bring your camera and have a picture with a goat or a lamb that day. We'll have some hay bales and some benches available. So please make sure that you have your camera with us. And of course, as always, we will have some seasonal treats to taste while you're here at the museum. So we are all excited about that. And if you'll give us just a minute, Dr. Richardson will be online in just a moment. Oh, there is Dr. Richardson, which he will be joining us virtually today. But we would like to welcome Dr. Richardson, a member and vice chief of the Haliwa-Saponi Indian Tribe. And he's going to provide us with a very informative talk today on the history, culture, language, education, and contemporary issues of American Indian tribes in North Carolina, with a focus on the Haliwa-Saponi Indian Tribe. Dr. Richardson, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Nahan PP, Dr. Marty Richardson, Minki Kohana Se, Mima Haliwa-Saponi Isa, Halastud, North Carolina, Owatiwa. My name is Dr. Marty Richardson. I serve as was said, I serve as Vice Chief of the Haliwa-Saponi Indian Tribe. I've been involved in many different aspects of Native society throughout my life as a Haliwa-Saponi Indian. I hold my PhD in history from UNC Chapel Hill and a few other degrees as well, but I won't talk about that. But today I'm just going to share with you a little bit about my tribe, the Haliwa-Saponi Indian Tribe, and also some general information about natives in North Carolina as well. A lot of the history that I'll share with you today about my tribe is really relevant to others as well. I'm going to turn my camera off. It gets a little weird when you start a presentation. I'm going to turn my camera off so that I can move the windows around, and then I'll come back on after I finish my presentation. I hope you all can see the presentation. Can you please tell me if you're able to see presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So again, my name is Dr. Marvin Marty Richardson. I was given the name Marvin, and then nicknamed Marty in my childhood. And so a lot of times if I use my name Marvin, people don't know who they're talking about. So Marty is what I'm normally called. And I want to trying to go to the next slide here. There we are. So we're still here. Um, it amazes me when I travel around or if I talk to people, or just knowing, or just somehow if we do a presentation, or even just in passing, if I'm wearing something, or it's just amazing how 30 minutes down the road in Rocky Mount, where most of our people go for town, that a lot of people just don't know about us. And we're only 30 minutes up the road, but we're still here. And together, we try to maintain our legacy of our ancestors. You see here a picture of the fire. This is a fire that we have at our annual powwow, which is always the third weekend in April, or um, the day in April closest, the weekend closest to April 15th, which is the day of our state recognition by North Carolina. We hold our annual powwow, and we'll be celebrating our 60th anniversary this upcoming year in April of 2025. But we always light our fire. It's something that our elders and our ancestors have been doing for a very long time, something that we're very well known for. And its meaning is probably different from for different people. I've kind of come up with what I feel like the fire means for me to me, and the fire just means an continual legacy of our people, and it reflects the resilience of our people. When I look at our past of what, and you'll learn more about that here in just a few minutes, what our people have gone through as far as getting recognized, and being able to identify ourselves as Native people. We've had a struggle with that over the years, and we continue with that struggle. And over the years, our people, during certain time periods, the fire was burning real bright for us in our organizing efforts and our political efforts. But then sometimes we weren't successful in different things that we tried. And so that fire kind of burned down a little bit to a smolder, but it was always going. And then the next set of leaders and the next generation would come along and put some more logs on that fire. Um, well, I'm happy to say that starting back in the it's hard to put a date on it because things have always been going on, but starting back in the late 1940s and early 1950s, our people really started putting more logs on that fire. And to me, luckily, that fire is still burning bright today. This is a map. This is an old map. This is the Edward Moseley map of 1733. Edward Moseley was the surveyor for North Carolina. And this shows a lot of different towns, native towns. It's maybe a little bit hard to see. If you look in the northern part of North Carolina, you could see up here on the what's now the Virginia border, Virginia North Carolina border, Monty Shop Ford. Monty Shop um, is Saponi words, our traditional language. Saponi Monty there means is the Siouan word for water, and then shop is it means flat. So it's an area where you could cross over and keep going on your travels. Uh, Directly south of that is a native word that I see as a traditional name for the place, for the area, Shahuntakot. And then south of that, you'll see Fishing Sea, and then you'll see Conway Sea. That is basically where we live right now, the Haliwa-Saponi Indian Tribe. Um, and so we have connections to these other places. If you look to the eastern part of North Carolina, of course, this is only a snippet of the map that's a little bit more relevant to our people. But you'll see up in the right-hand corner, you'll see Nansemond. It's in kind of you don't see the whole word here, but you see it there, Nansemond. That's where the Nansemond town was, which is another one of the tribes that our tribe descends from, the Nansemond people. And then south of that, you see Meherrin. And then even further south, you see the Ruscote. Then you see Tuscarora. That was the area of the Tuscarora Indians. And then also, if you look towards the bottom of uh, the map, it says this part of the country was formerly inhabited by the Tuscarora Indians. Then you see Dehirua Fort, which played a big in Hancockstown, which played a big part in the Tuscarora War, yeah, around 1712. So that's just a little bit about the historic Native communities. Of course, there are many others. I see over here to the left other Saponi names: Yapatico Creek, Ohimpa Creek. Those are all Saponi. Up into Virginia, you see Akanichi Island. The Akanichi or the Okanichi are another tribe that is historic to North Carolina and Virginia area. North Carolina natives are very diverse in their languages and their culture. Native people of North Carolina or and of United States and North America and other places are similar throughout the world. There are different types of languages, and these languages are put into different language groups. And so you have Algonquian, which was mostly those tribes mostly inhabited the coastal regions of North Carolina off to the eastern part there. You can see many of those tribes listed there on this map. The Chowanoke, the Wayapamiyoke, Pamlico, the Machipongo, um, and the Algonquian speaking tribes range from uh, eastern North Carolina all the way up into Canada. And then there are many different Algonquian speaking tribes out in the west and in the north as well. Iroquoian. Iroquoian is named after the Iroquois Indians, or what's known today as the Six Nations. So they just basically gave a name to represent that linguistic group of languages and tribes, and some of those tribes that are representative of that group are the Tuscarora, the Meherrin, and also I would also mention the Nottoway, who also took up residence in North Carolina as well, and were their language was very similar to both Tuscarora and Meherrin. Then you have the Southern Iroquois speakers, which are the Cherokee. Of course, the Eastern Band of Cherokees live out in the western part of North Carolina, and then of course their relatives live. Most of them live out in Indian Territory, or what's now known as Oklahoma. Then you have the Siouan. The name is named after the Sioux Indians. Which is not their original name, of course, but they call themselves Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota people. But we are descendants of those Siouan peoples who left the Midwest, the Ohio Valley area, and moved down into the southeastern part. And those tribes that are represented in with the Siouan language in North Carolina would be the Saponi, the Tutelo, the Occaneechi, the Catawba, the Cheraw, and the Waccamaw. So at one time, our native people were living their best lives and living off the land and had their own political organizations. They had their own rules. They had their own governance. They occupied their own territories, and they also had relations with other tribes. Some of them were friendly, some of them were not at times, and those changed over time. They had their own uh, exchange system of trade that stretched all across North America. But then we had newcomers to come to our area and brought with them many things that we had not encountered, and we call this the Columbian Exchange, the sharing of animals, plants, insects, germs, and technology as a result of contact between Europe, Asia, Africa, and America. And so we have this concept of the New World, which is what the explorers called uh, the North America, the Western Hemisphere, when they came to it. They called it the New World. And there's also a concept of the New World um, that says that Native people encountered a whole new world because of these things. Well, that's true, but others, the newcomers, also experienced a new world because they also encountered things and people and cultures and foodstuffs and plants and other things that they had not come into contact with. And so that became that's the Columbian Exchange. The Columbian Exchange is a circle. It's not just a line that goes from North America to Europe or wherever. It's globalization. Course, another term that we often use in history is the virgin soul epidemic, and that's the diseases that the newcomers brought to our lands that we didn't have immunity to, and we're basically defenseless to that. If you can imagine the devastation that COVID-19 had on our country and in our world, there's not necessarily a cure for it. There's so you can imagine that's basically what our people went through, and that was the important, most single important factor as it relates to how we related to ourselves, but also to outsiders as well. So, what about North Carolina Native peoples today? We have 8 state recognized tribes, and we also have 4 urban organizations. Um, Looking at the map here, up here in the right, the Brown in Hertford County, that's where the Meherrin tribe lives now. And of course, not too far away from them would be our tribe, the Haliwa-Saponi Indian Tribe. And this map is a little bit faulty. Our community, we consider our community and our tribal territory to be Warren, Halifax, Franklin, Nash, Vance, and Granville counties. Those are the areas that our people occupied and lived for a very long time. And and so next we have in the pink, that is the Saponi tribe. They're located in Person County, but they're unique with the North Carolina Native communities because their tribal community actually extends over into the next county of Virginia, into Halifax County, Virginia, and that's actually where their tribal headquarters is located, is in Virginia. But they are a North Carolina state recognized tribe. They are a distant cousin of our people, the Saponis of our people, and so we have a good relationship with them. Um, Next, you see in the orange, that is the area Alamance in Orange County. That is the where the Occaneechi Band of Saponi Nation lives. That is their territory. You look at the green there, that's the Coharie tribe, that's Harnett and Sampson counties. And then the sort of turquoise green, that is where the Lumbee tribe, which is the largest tribe in North Carolina with over probably close to 60,000 members now. Then you have, and the purple is where the Waccamaw people live. And then finally, for our tribes out in the western part is where the Eastern Band of Cherokee Nation, Eastern Band lives. Eastern Band of Cherokees live. We also have urban organizations. We have the Metrolana Native American Association, which is located near Charlotte. That's in the, you see that there in the western part. We also have the Cumberland County Association for Indian People located in Fayetteville. We have the Guilford Native American Association located in Greensboro. And then we have the Triangle Native American Society, which is located in the Raleigh Chapel Hill area. So, what is something about North Carolina Native people? Well, we are very adaptive people. We are very resilient. We've had to change over time, but we've had common strategies to maintain our community and identity. And some of those I'll go over here in just a minute. Over time, during the Jim Crow era, we were susceptible to many of the Jim Crow laws of segregation, of not being able to use certain bathrooms, or um, just not being able to go certain places, or do certain things. The Native people of North Carolina endured that for a long time, but we survived by largely favoring our relationships within the Native community to keep our people strong, to keep us together, and to keep us safe, to be quite honest with you. Um, Today in North Carolina, we have over 100,000 Native people. I would say that the vast majority of them are members of North Carolina tribes. And of course, as I mentioned, we have 8 state recognized tribes, with the Lumbee being the largest at approximately 55,000. The Eastern Band of Cherokees have approximately 13,000. And then all the other tribes kind of vary. My tribe has approximately 4,000, and others vary between, say, 500 to 2 or 3,000 members. As part of our history, our people, you hear a lot about reservations as it relates to Native people. And of course, you still have a trust land responsibility for the Eastern Band, that continues today, that was reconstituted back in the late 1800s. But for the majority of us, we lost our reservation lands very early. We were put on reservations and confined to certain areas back starting in the 1600s and going up into the 1800s, were reservation lands of some of our ancestors. But a lot of times they lost those. There was a lot of encroachment on their reservations. Some of them just didn't want to live on the reservation. Some of them were tired of not having uh, a proper deed, and the authorities just allowing folks to just go squat on their lands. And so they decided that they would purchase their own lands, and so they could have control over it. In many cases, they doing that, they lost the government to government relationship at that time. Um, and as I mentioned, they defined their communities with individual land ownership to protect their lands. As I've mentioned a little bit several times, and I'm going to focus right now to the topic I know best. Of course, I'm very familiar with all the tribes in North Carolina quite a bit, but I'm really going to focus on my tribe. And so we're very tribally diverse. At one time, some of these tribes that we descend from uh, hated each other, and at other times they loved each other. And eventually they came together through love and through equal protection. They all spoke different languages, though some of them were multilingual. You have the Saponi, Siouan speaking, Tuscarora, Iroquoian speaking. The Nansemond are Algonquin speakers. So as I stated, we lost or abandoned our communal lands. Then we own individual lands. We can document that our people came from. A lot of them came out of Virginia. Some of them occupied the northeastern parts of North Carolina. We also have documentation of our people living on the at Riscute Town, or the Indian Woods Reservation as well. But eventually, all those people, many of them were either pushed or decided to move to what we call the Meadows, which is where we are today. Again, the Haliwa-Saponi community, that's where we are today. And this is a map from Halifax County. This is a total map of Halifax County, but also just kind of zooming in on exactly where we are on the Halifax County side. If you see in the corner to the left on the right image, you see the meadows mentioned right there. That's basically where we are in the Brinkleyville Township. But again, it flows over into Warren County, Nash County, and Franklin County, mostly where most of our people live today. And I would say about 60% of our people live in our traditional territory. As I mentioned, our people endured Jim Crow. Many times it was hard for our people to be identified on official records, such as the census records, birth certificates, death certificates. We had a hard time being able to put Indian down on those records. And so we were basically pushed into a category of colored. And so a lot of our records of our people, before we were able to reorganize ourselves and actually fight a legal battle over that practice. A lot of times you'll see our records as mention us as colored or otherwise non-native, and that's sometimes listed on certain records as white, and sometimes listed as black or whatever the terminology that was used at the time. So that's a fight that our people have been fighting. Um, our people were and still are patriots. We fought in essentially every single world war before the founding of the United States and after. Our people fought in the American Revolution on the American side, of course, and um, for their duty, they were paid, and they also were granted land like a lot of other soldiers. And that land that they were granted, sometimes 400, 300, 500 acres at a time, became the land base for our people, I should say, expanded our land base because our people have been landowners. We can document our people being landowners back into the 16, 1700s. Um, there was really an issue with slavery. The the topic or the practice of slavery came into question after the American Revolution, or even during the American Revolution, because the thought was that our country was the slave to England, and some people say, well, that's mighty ironic that we're calling ourselves slaves, but yet we own slaves. And so, of course, if you know about history, you know that the abolitionist movement started in the North, and but that caused a lot of issues for us. The 1835 constitutional amendment took away our right to vote, and other restrictions were placed on that. So again, as I mentioned, a lot of our history and our survivals is couched in the issue of trying to survive and be ourselves, within what I call in my academic work, the black-white binary or the colored-white binary of the South and white supremacy. Um, our people also had to endure outside notions of native authenticity. And often when I'm doing this in person, or if I'm able to be a little bit more interactive with folks, I'll ask them what they believe are notions of native authenticity. And some of them have to do with culture change and what our people endured. So when you think of Native American people, you also often have a stereotype of what Native people look like, the types of languages that they speak, or the types of housing that they live in, or what they eat, and other things. But realizing that our culture has never been the same, even before contact, and it definitely changed quite a bit after contact. So we're modern people. We observe obligations of kinship and reciprocity. We That's how Native people are. Even if you're not blood related to someone could be considered your brother or your aunt, your grandpa, your grandma. That's how we are as people, and it's all about how we treat each other, and it's all about reciprocity. It's all about giving, helping each other, and giving back. And those are some values that we as Native people have to maintain, and it's very difficult in a modern American capitalist system. So again, maintaining our separate identity. After the Civil War, of course, our people fought in the Civil War. Um, some of them tried to, or they were there during the Civil War. Some of them tried to stay neutral as much as possible. Others packed up their belongings and moved to places where they could fight on the Union side. Um, and so we did different things, but after the Civil War was over, it presented an opportunity after the Civil War for us to start having our own establishments and schools and things like that. And that's what our people did. They established Jeremiah Methodist Church, Pine Chapel Baptist Church, and St. Paul's Baptist Church, which were majorly attended and led by our Native people. They also donated some land to Warren County, an acre of land to Warren County to establish the Bethlehem School in 1882. That was again a school that our people built, supported, and went to. And then Secret Hill School, which was another school that's still a little mysterious. It survives in our oral histories. I haven't found any records of the school itself, which tells me that it was probably a private school. Um, and the leader of that school was the gentleman right here, Tillman P. Lynch, was one of our main leaders in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So our federal acknowledgement journey, I mentioned several times our tribe is state recognized, but I can explain a little bit more to you. But since at least 1896, our people have been trying to gain recognition as Native people, as a Native tribe. Um, and and again, that is a carryover of and included in of what I've been talking about to maintain a separate identity. That was a strategy. Our people applied to the Dawes Commission in 1896, and this is a picture of some of those applicants. They were very sophisticated. They sent some pictures along with them. This is a Alfred Richardson Jr. and his family. Alfred Richardson Jr. is the gentleman standing up in the right there, and his other brothers and sisters, and I think one of his aunts is in this picture as well. They were unsuccessful in their aim, but with 300 tribal ancestors, it was definitely a move and a strategy that cut across all families. Essentially, all families and many of our ancestors were mentioned or were participated in that. Um, they were unsuccessful, but then again, Alfred Richardson Jr. came back in 1906 and applied to the United States Court of Claims to be recognized as a native as well. As I mentioned, that the fire of our people, that was when the fire was burning real bright in the late 1800s. As I mentioned, they were unsuccessful in gaining recognition through the federal government, and so I think that they continued talking, but the fire kind of smoldered down a little bit. And then came World War II. And I have to go back to World War One. World War One showed that outsiders really wanted they knew about what we were doing. Some of them didn't like it. And so our World War II draft registrations don't acknowledge our native ancestry. And as a matter of fact, um, it just seems like a concerted effort to deny that. But then World War II came around again, and our people that they insisted on being listed as Indian when they drafted, and the records show that that someone checked Indian on those records, and then someone else came back and checked another race, which showed that there was still resistance to our people being recognized as Native people. Around the early 1950s, our people got in contact or learned more about the Lumbee Indians of Robertson County and about what they had been doing. They had been operating their own churches and schools. since the 1800s, and pretty much came on as our mentors in order to help us establish institutions that would be unmistakably Indian. And so in 1953, our people established the Haliwa Indian Club. One of the main leaders in that is the gentleman pictured here, John Conrad Hedgepeth, or John C. Hedgepeth. In 1957, with the help of the Lumbees and other supporters, we established the Haliwa Indian School. Of course, the most interesting part about that is that it was after Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. And so it was after the official United States Segregation Act, Desegregation Act. But of course, if you know anything about Southern history, you know that a lot of the Southern states resisted segregation up until the 1970s. And so our people were able to partner with non-natives, white folks that supported our efforts to remain separate. And we established the Haliwa Indian School in 1957. In 1958, we established the Saponi Indian Baptist Church, which was later uh, retitled the Mount Bethel Indian Baptist Church. And then in 1965, we worked with our legislators and folks, our supporters, to be recognized officially by the state legislature as a tribe. And to celebrate that, we started our powwow in 1965. So again, our powwows, the first powwow was in April of 1965 to celebrate the tribe's state recognition. This year, next year, we'll be celebrating our 60th year. And we have the oldest powwow and largest powwow in North Carolina. Dancing and singing is very important for us to maintain our Indian identity. And it's also included in a lot of our uh, events that we host, our gatherings, things that keep us together, things that help us educate outsiders about our tribe. We usually have over 500 participants and 8,000 spectators to come to our event, and with 35 vendor booths and 10 food booths. The event is open to the public. I actually serve as chairman of the powwow committee myself, and so I invite all of you to come to Hollister April 18th through the 20th, 2025, and then look out for more information about that. So language revitalization. Language is a very important aspect. Sorry, language is a very important aspect of our tribe and community. These efforts to use the language began in the early 1980s with Arnold Richardson, who's one of our tribal elders. He's still with us, but he started doing research on the Saponi language, started in the 1980s, and also had a drum group named Shallow Water, which was actually named after the word that I showed you, the creek I showed you before, Mani Shop or Mani Sop, which is shallow water. And so through his mentorship, I was actually born in North Carolina, but I was raised in Baltimore, Maryland. And I attended powwows and had a strong connection to my community and also had a strong connection to Mr. Arnold Richardson. He became mentoring me in our history and our language. And I started doing my own research, and I wasn't even able to drive yet. And my parents would take me and drop me off at the local library, or I'd ride my bike or somehow get there. And so I started doing my research on the language, and I learned that Saponi and Tutelo are what we call mutually intelligible, which means that it's essentially the same language that they can understand each other. And I also learned that there was more materials on the Tutelo language. So a little bit about our language. These are some useful words and phrases. Um, what we call our language in our language is Yesa Sahin, and that is basically the people's speech. Um, in our language, we say good morning, we say Kanahampan api, and that is made out of course, the word for morning is kanahampana, and then our word for good is be or be. Good day. We combine the words for day and good. Uh, the word for day is nahampi, and then the word for day for good again is P. So Nahang P. Good day. The way that we say ask someone their name is we say Kakayin Kikoho. What are you called? What is your name? And then when we're introducing ourselves, I introduced myself earlier and I said my name, Dr. Marty, and then we say Minki Kohane say, and that means I am called or they call me is how we say those words. Also, some other useful words and phrases. We can ask someone, "Where do you live?" Tokayatiwo, where do you live? And then I would say, and I said this earlier, Hollister Watiwa, I live in Hollister. We have a grammar, of course, all languages have grammar. You can see that there are some similarities in some of these words here. If you look at this and just a little bit of linguistics for you, this ya in this word yati, well, that represents one of the pronouns for you. So that's you. And then the word ti, that is the word for reside. And then wa, and you'll see wa down here. Wa is what we add on to say that something is real to the speaker. And then O is what we add at the end to make a question. So that's this breakdown of that. And then of course over here, wa is the pronoun for I, D reside, and then the other wa, which is the real aspect. My friend, witaje, witaje. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, this screen for a moment, and I'm going to pull up what is listed here again. I want to show you all some of the work that we've been doing. I want to share with you the Living Dictionary. Can you all see that? See this? Oops. Can you all see the Living Dictionary?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is the Tutelo-Saponi Monacan Living Dictionary. We are partnering with the Living Tongues Institute for Endangered Languages. We started our partnership around, I believe it was 2019 when we started this. Living Tongues Institute works with many different indigenous languages all throughout the country, and they have different dictionaries. And so we've been working on this since 2019, and it's a labor of love. It's more like a labor a hobby job, I guess. But the folks that use this dictionary are able to come in here. There are a few words that still need to be recorded that we've added recently, but essentially you can go in here, and I don't know if I have it set up to where you all. Let me see if I can share the audio as well. I hope I'm able to share the audio. Okay, here we go. Share sound. So I'm gonna play. I hope you all are able to hear this. I'm not sure if you will be, but I'll try to play a few of these words here.
Hook, hawk,
Can you tell me if you all were able to hear that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So yes, so I can, and I don't know if I can do it. I have my headphones on, but I could just click on this microphone here, and I can just go and select myself as a speaker, and then I can click on this, and then I can tap to record, and then I can record this word. I'm gonna try and see if it works. It might not work again with my microphone. Ima olak peyuka. Ima olak peyuka. I don't quite like that the way it came out, so I can just delete it and I can record it again. Ima olak pekua. Still not satisfied with that. I'm gonna try one more time. Ima olak peyuka. Ima olak pe. It still didn't come out right, but that's fine. But you get the point. I'll have to go back and record that one. But that's basically what we do. I have a partner that I work with. His name is Dave, Dr. Dave Kaufman. He is a linguist that studied at the University of Kansas in Siouan languages, and he's my partner. He helps me out with this, analyzing the words, coming up with new words. That's another thing about our language. I'm just going to stop sharing, and then I'll go back to the presentation. But that's a little bit about our language. Is that we are reconstructing language, and we don't have a lot of materials to work with, and we're essentially doing the best we can with what we have, and using a lot of comparative linguistics to work on this. I'm going to share my screen again. So what about Haliwa-Saponis today? We have a tribal government that's been recognized by the state, the counties that we reside in. We've gotten resolutions of supporting our governance from Halifax County, Warren County, Nash, and Franklin counties. But we also have a nonprofit organization allows us to go after a lot of different grants to provide services to our people. We have an 11-member tribal council, which includes a chief and vice chief. We have over 4,000 tribal members, and 62% of those members live in the Haliwa-Saponi community. Programs and services, we have a tribal housing program. As I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about recognition, our people do receive, although we don't receive services through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, we do receive services and have been receiving services since the 1950s through various government programs set aside for Native people and Native tribes, and that includes our tribal housing. Our tribe is one of only 5 tribes in the whole country that receives the Native American Housing and Self-Determination Assistance Act dollars from HUD. And we also operate cultural programs, the TAPS program, the Red Earth Culture Class. And as I mentioned several times, we're seeking full federal acknowledgement through the BIA process, but also through congressional legislation. We have our own tribal school, which is a charter school, chartered under the state that services grades K through 12. We have health programs. We're working on our infrastructure. Currently, the Hollister area doesn't have infrastructure, water, and sewer, which it causes an issue when it comes to housing. We have a lot of failing septic systems in our community, and also broadband internet is something that we're trying to do. What are our issues? Jobs, economic development. Many of our people have to drive a half hour or hour or more to go to work for decent, well-paying jobs. Our health issues. Our people have a lot of health issues as it relates to diabetes. We have a high cancer incidence of cancer in our tribe, obesity, diabetes, you name it, cholesterol. Uh, Heart disease. Our people have a lot of health issues. And as I mentioned, full acknowledgement, maintaining and revitalizing our culture. We still have issues with racial classification. A lot of times when our people go to different to doctors' offices or to other places, a lot of those places don't ask your race or even get stopped by the police. A lot of times they don't ask our people's race or identity, and a lot of times we're put down as something that we're not, and so that continues to be a problem for our people. Of course, out migration due to the lack of jobs and affordable housing here in the community. And of course, our people still endure historical trauma of the things that our people have gone through over the years. And so at this time, that's all I have for our presentation. And I've probably taken up more than my time today for you. But that is a little bit about the Haliwa-Saponi Indian Tribe and other Native people here in the state of North Carolina. I'm open for questions or any comments from the audience if you want to come off mute, or if you're in the audience, if you want to ask a question. Thank you.
Hey, would we have any questions that you would like to ask?
Would the slides be available in the
Yeah, we, with Dr. Richardson's permission, we have recorded today. Would it be all right if we, add your presentation to our YouTube account?
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Yes, so if you will give us a couple of days, we will have that available on the Museum of the Albemarle's YouTube account.
You might stop me from using it again, though. I'll just play. That's a joke.
We did have a comment from Pinehurst, North Carolina. Thank you very much. Additional
Thank you.
questions? Yes, sir.
What's the registration threshold?
What is the registration threshold?
I'm sorry, I was reading a comment and I apologize for that. Ask the question again.
What is the registration threshold?
The registration threshold?
Yes, sir.
I don't understand the registration threshold.
What is considered to be, what is the amount of, yes, blood you have to be?
I will let you see the mic, and we should be able to hear.
What is the amount of blood you have to be, you have to be considered Haliwa-Saponi?
Currently our tribe does not have a blood quantum. We don't measure blood quantum. What we measure is lineal descent and what we call social ties. And social ties have to do with we have few different criteria as relates to social ties. That includes being on our base rolls. We have a roll of people that that are made up of a few different it has to do with descendancy, who you descend from, those folks that are enumerated as Indian on certain documents, including our census documents, those people who participated in our reorganization efforts, those folks are part of our base rolls. So we don't have a blood quantum.
Additional questions? And I think we're okay online. Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Richardson. We greatly appreciate you joining us today. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation. So you have taught me a lot today, and I hope that our audience was able to learn a little bit, and also online. But thank you very much.
Thank you, and Bila Hoop to everyone. I apologize for the screen. I would have definitely got that if you all didn't see the full presentation. I apologize for that. Do you have another question?
Additional questions?
Miss Mangum?
No, I was clapping.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Richardson. Thank you to our online guests, and thank you to our in-person audience today, to our guest visitors today. Thank you very much.
Biwa nahan pipi, nahan pipi.
Thank you. Again.